Welcome to this edition of the Therapy Business Club podcast number 3. Thank you for being on this podcast. My name is Ewan Jupp, host, co-founder of Therapy Business Club, helping therapists grow a flourishing practice. That's what it's all about. I'm very privileged today to welcome a guest who is part of the Therapy Business Club, a therapist, a hypnotherapist who's been around a long time in the therapy business, a wonderful guy and friend that I believe will share a wonderful amount of enlightening information today. Welcome, Den. Clare. Hi, how are you, Den?
I am extremely well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and hope we get a good podcast out of it. Yeah.
Thanks for being had. It's good. It's good to see you, Den. The podcast is all about helping therapists, not so much in their particular form of therapy, but how to grow a business. Because I think many have realized, certainly in our orbit in the Therapy Business Club, how do I use video? How do I use social media? It's not about how they do their therapy. It's about growing business, how to reach out to their clients. So this podcast, in some way, is a sort of spotlight on you, because I understand it's about 40 years as a hypnotherapist. You know, that takes business skill, not just therapy skills.
This is my 44th year.
44 years. Wow.
I don't look old enough, but yes, it's my 44th year.
You look like a youngster. So obviously something has worked in your therapy approach there. But before we go into that, let's just give a bit of background to our listeners. Who is Den Clare?
Well, I was living in Aldershot in Hampshire, and I left school. I didn't know quite what to do. I was very good at maths, loved figures. So I joined the bank. I worked in Lloyd's Bank from age 17. I was the number one cashier. And I was 18 and a half, I think it was, about that age. And I went in for my 6-month report, and the bank manager said to me, Mr. Clare, you've got a wonderful career ahead of you. You're number one cashier at a very young age. You will, at the age of 40, you'll be a bank manager with a great career. Wow. And I went home and thought, whoever gets to be 40? I mean, that was, wow. I went next door to the police station and said, I work in the bank. I'd like to join the police. What do I do? And they said, well, if you work in the bank, best recommendation, you will have to do a physical test and everything else and a bit of psychological aware, but we'd love to have you. So I joined the police just on having been told that one day I'd be 40. I joined the police. I got posted to the Isle of Wight. I did about 18 months in the police. I met some people that had a retail shop. And because of the knowledge I had from the bank, I used to do their bookkeeping in my spare time in the police. I worked for them for about a year or so. And they offered me a situation to leave the police and work for them. And I said, well, as long as there is a prospect of some sort of management rather than just serving in the shop, I went to work for them. And then after about 2 or 3 years, I didn't realize the shop was on leasehold. They didn't want to take a loan. They said, no. So I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go and approach the bank. I didn't have any money. I knew how to phrase the business plan. So I went to the bank, and they actually lent me the money to buy the freehold of this shop 45, 50 years ago, whatever. So the other two, eventually I bought them out. I ran this shop. It was Den's Toy Box. It was a wonderful toy shop for years.
Lovely.
Eventually I bought another one up by borrowing. I still didn't have any money. It's amazing, really. At one stage, probably owned £100,000, paying 18%. Rates going there. Gosh. I ran the shops for 45 years or so and sold them both. So that allowed me to pay off all my mortgages. Alongside that, from about 40 odd years ago, I did some training, quite a lot of training in America with Gil Boyne, quite a well-known guy in America.
Hypnotherapist, yeah.
Yeah. I'd seen some work with some spiritual healing. I got very interested in that. And then I realized that so much of disease was of the mind. And I sort of got the idea that about 60-70% was probably emotionally induced of illness, excluding heart attacks and broken legs and stuff like that. So I started studying. I did a lot of quite a few weeks in California. I studied with Wilf Proudfoot in Yorkshire for a while. And I took up the brave venture of opening the hypnotherapy consultancy. And the first lady that came to me, I never forget it. I don't know who was more scared, she or me, but she's going to stop smoking. I think it worked. And ever since then, I've continued doing therapy. I'm at the other end of the scale now. I'm easing off a little bit. I love the technology now is incredible. Absolutely, the scope, the things that people can do and learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been very good. My main objective has always been for the people, and seeing the benefit and the feedbacks.
Okay.
Lovely, it's wonderful when you get things are working for them. It's really good.
So it's
moved on so much now, though.
It has, and we'll get to that. Why it seems to be so popular. Would you say you sort of stumbled into it then, Den? Because toy shop and other things, police and bank. I mean, it's not necessarily a logical progression. There must have been something that sort of grabbed your attention about hypnotherapy that you decided to go to the States.
I think what it was, my parents were actually spiritualists. And I studied healing with a chap called Harry Edwards, who was a very famous healer based in Guildfordshire.
Is this like Christian spirit, the spiritual
no,
Mary Baker Eddy's work? Or?
Funnily enough, Mary Baker Eddy did get involved with both therapy and healing.
Okay.
But no, this was a separate. It's a National Federation of Spiritual Healers.
Okay.
And I became registered healer. But then, having seen so much of how that worked, again, I think, well, a lot of this is the mind. If people actually believe in something enough and be reasonable, sensible. I know some things are obviously not in that category, but the power of the mind is just incredible. So I studied, I learned, I'm still studying, still learning, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was lucky enough when I had the shops, I could put managers in and give more time to my therapy side, so running the two side by side. And just learning and experiencing and wondering at it over the years,
Yeah, it's certainly, hypnotherapy is something that's gained a lot of popularity, I think, in the last decade. I mean, I can't make factual statistical statements, but there's a lot of therapists around. So obviously there's either a lot of need that needs to be met, or people are just realizing that actually so much of our problems then are lodged in our mind. If we can really get to that, I think that's what appealed to me.
Yeah.
I was doing coaching, I was doing talking type of stuff with people, but just not getting the results, because you can talk, you can try and convince people to change, but that's really not the part of them that needs to be talked to. And I found in hypnotherapy a way to really access what drives people, what really are the things responsible for those behaviors and stuff.
So I do get the odd referral now from doctors. So, I mean, they're becoming more aware. A couple of dentists on the island I know use it.
Yeah.
A lot.
So,
it's just a lot more acceptable now, isn't it?
It is. I think some of these things, therapies, these modalities are viewed as alternative. And when that label gets put on it, then, we don't get government sanction, and it's seen as a sort of a out there type of practice. Anecdotally, I think people just looking for results. Does it work?
Yeah.
You can tell people to your blue in the face, stop smoking, or try a hypnotherapeutic approach where actually it's not just anecdotal, it's evidence-based. People, do experience freedom from many things, not just smoking.
And complementary, of course, is the word rather than alternative, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we could go down that route.
I've also been fascinated by some of the sort of unusual things. I did a talk about 10 years ago on Radio Solent, and they said, "Oh, come and talk about hypnotherapy." And I said, "We'll do an experiment. We'll do a healing experiment." And I said, "Before we do this, please, if you're driving, if you use machinery, please don't take part, don't listen at all. But if you can be sat comfortably and feeling good, I'm going to play a little piece of music for about 2 minutes. And if you have any problems of any sort, pain, whatever, as long as, again, the pain is acknowledged by your GP and obviously common sense, and the music will play and you'll feel and imagine this healing energy." The number of people that phoned in, "Oh, my back pain's gone. oh, something like that. One guy, talk about Uri Geller, one guy phoned in and said, I've had this clock here by the side that hasn't worked for years and it started working. I
Wow.
mean,
Magician.
energy. Well, no, it's the whole of the universe is energy, isn't it? And I think if people can learn to tap into that energy, even healing is somebody being a channel for energy,
That's
pure
right.
energy, nothing to do with getting involved
Yeah.
in spirit and all the rest of it.
Yeah, some of
It's
those
pure
views wouldn't be
energy.
seen as mainstream then, but I think it's one of those things in the last few decades again that, this whole idea about energy, vibration,
Mm,
frequency, I think it has a scientific backing. No, that's my anecdotal sort of answer, but I've seen it in action in my own life in changing things. And
mm,
it seems a lot of people are realizing that now, that a lot of the healing that we require, it's within us, actually.
yeah.
We don't need medication. I'm not knocking the pharmaceutical process or over the
No,
counter
quite.
stuff, but it just seems to be the quick process that doctors give now. Let's medicate. Let's just,
Yeah.
but there are alternative ways. And that's what I found attractive about
Yeah.
hypnotherapy. It could provide what other things just couldn't reach, like Carlsberg
Yeah.
reaching those sides.
Yeah. And I feel quite sorry for the doctors. I've got one or two doctor pals and they're restricted to 5 or 7 minutes per person. How can they
Mm.
get to know the person? So
They
what they
can't.
do is they look at a
They
computer,
can't. They
give
can't.
out some drugs, blah, 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 and I think once people realize that one of the rules of the mind, that which is expected, tends to be realized. So I
Mm.
think if they can raise their expectation
Yeah.
and then desire, belief, expectation all come into it. But if somebody can believe enough, they can bring about possibilities. Let's
That's
say that.
right.
We don't talk about cures, but endless possibilities. I hate it when somebody comes as the doctor tells me I've got to live with this. And so many times I say to them, look, the first thing is, please don't, you haven't got to live with it. Let's see what we
Mm.
can do.
Yeah,
And the
those
problem
words
is,
become self-fulfilling prophecies, don't they?
absolutely,
You'll get what you believe. That's essentially.
absolutely. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's such a powerful, it's not just words, it's a powerful energy again,
Very good. Yeah.
expectation.
I
Yeah.
love that, Dan. I really love that. And I'm pleased, that's part of your perspective in all of this as well, because I firmly believe that, and maybe some of our listeners do as well. Success stories over the years. You must have had a few standout ones. I suppose we like to, if there's a result, it's a success in some sort of form. But are
Yeah.
there any particular stories that you
I
can
think,
relate?
I mean, again, the main things we do is probably the weight loss, is stopping smoking, is coping with stress. But of each of those, one of them I will never forget is a 100 a day smoker.
Wow. That's a
He
hell of a lot of
phoned me and
money.
he said to me, what's the chances? And I said, well, I can help you to stop smoking. A lot of it is down to you, but book in your sessions, always 2 sessions for smoking. He came along, 100 a day. I did a session which would cut him to 50 a day, or particularly stop smoking on the second one. He came back for a second session. He said, I got in my car. He said, absolutely smelled horribly. He said, I got home. We had to spring clean the house. He said, I could not touch a
Wow.
cigarette. So on the second one, I just gave him a little top up just to reinforce. And I've seen him several times since, because the island is a fairly,
Yeah.
close community place. Still never smoked from 100 a day. So that one clicks to my mind. And then I had a dear old lady. She was 83. She hadn't eaten for, I think it was 2.5, 3 weeks. She was losing a bit of weight. The GP said that there's nothing wrong. We've had throat thing and everything. And anyway, I did a session with her. I took her back gently in hypnosis, and then she started coughing a little bit and told me that she realized then she was eating chicken and a bit of bone had stuck in her throat.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her now that the bone had been ejected, that she was feeling great. She could eat and breathe and do everything perfectly, and certainly, eat her food well. Anyway, that next morning, I got a call from her husband. He was 90, 91.
Mm.
And he said, we went out last night for fish and chips. And she said, he ate them beautifully. And he said, it's done, it's worked. And that had all that sort of little bit more unusual. And then I had a weight loss one, was 20.5 stone. She came once a month. It took nearly 100, just under a year. She got to 10.5 stone, changed
Gosh.
her life, got married. I've seen her out since, changed her life completely. So, again, that one really, really sticks. There's over the years, so many others, but a lot of them are run of the mill. It's not a fair word, but literally
Sort of
on the
phobias.
basis of,
Yeah.
yeah, and phobias, spiders, and common
Mm.
one. Phobia. One of the ones, there was a TV channel on the island for a while, and they said, can they come along and make a little short thing?
Oh, okay.
And I said, what do you want to do it for? They said, well, we'll send the reporter along. And she had a phobia of buttons. And there's some unusual phobias, but
Mm.
that's quite unusual. Explained it all to her, and we came into, because she was seeing people at home, then we came into the room here. I put her into a light trance and asked her to describe what sort of buttons there were, and then I did a bit of NLP, a little bit of imagining these buttons to have funny faces, and really, really appealing to a sense of humor. And they'd made the program, and at the end of it, the guy said, I can confirm that she has since been shopping for a cardigan with buttons on.
With more buttons than usual.
I've still got little CDs for that one.
Uh, that's a
There's,
good story. That's a good story.
yeah,
I suppose there's all sorts, isn't it? If in my experience and my observation, weight management, smoking, these tend to be the sort of the big ones that could.
yeah,
For some people would be their own niche, providing a lifetime's worth of business,
of
I
course,
suppose.
yeah.
But I suppose you haven't niched in over those years, Dan. You've just tried to
No,
help as
no,
many as
it's just
possible.
I can't think of anything almost that I haven't
Wow.
done
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Oh, another one that really sprang to mind. It was only a few weeks ago. This guy phoned me up and said, Dan, I've seen you around for a long time. He said, I've just got back from New Zealand. I've lost my car keys. He said, I'm in a panic. I can't get indoors. All the keys have gone somewhere. And I said to him, well, let's do a little session. I won't charge you because to me it's something of interest. It's a little challenge. I did the session with it, took him back and tried to remember him getting out of the car and what he did with the keys, etc., etc. And I said to him, let me know in the morning because you may find, even if you don't now, you may find in the morning in dream state, you wake up and you just realize, where they are. And I made an appointment with him for 1 o'clock the next morning. Midday, the phone rang. He said, I found the keys. I found the keys. Then he said, they are exactly where I explained the subconscious mind. He said, exactly where you described the picture that he'd seen of a little cardboard box, and he thought a book or something. And he said what had happened, he's got a little library, he'd gone to the library, popped the keys into this box, which was by the side of the library. And he said it all came back. And he said, I found my keys.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And I had
hmm.
one other very quick one. Lady, a jeweler in Southampton, phoned me and said, oh, Dan, I've just taken over management of this jeweler shop. I've put the new code into the safe, closed it all up. She said, I haven't got a clue what it is. Can you help? She said, I've only seen your advert somewhere or other. I said, come over, come on the hovercraft. I'll pick you up, give you a 20-minute session, no charge, no promises, which we did, and took her back. And suddenly she was saying, oh, I can see, yes, I wrote these down. And she gave me these numbers. And I thought, well, okay, dropped her back. And 3 or 4 hours later, she phoned and said, yeah, worked, got the numbers. And it proves that everything is there in your subconscious
That's
mind,
right. That's
often
right.
which we can't bring to the surface. And there's little things like that just
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I love that example. It's not just
Yeah.
the standout things like phobias and anxiety, but
Mm.
actually, if it's in the subconscious, which everything is, then it's all accessible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like that double bind there. You might find the keys now. You might find them in the morning. Very subtle little double bind there. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
back to the business side of things, Dan, because I think that's what people
Mm.
find really useful. And I think about new therapists, passionate to want to practice. They care.
Yeah.
That's why they get into it. That's why I get into it. I care about people like you do. I want people to be well.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think the downside of that, if I can call it that, is that people might feel that that's enough to carry them through a business. I think the statistics Probably globally. I'm making a generalization here. Is in the first year, about 80, 85% of new businesses, so we can call practices as well, will fail.
Yeah.
Not for the people's experience or zeal for what they do. It's simple business skills are
Yeah.
lacking. And that's part of the philosophy of the Therapy Business Club, is to help people with those skills, not to help them, well, by extension, to be better therapists, but to give them a sort of a framework how to do their therapy so they can build a growing, flourishing business. There's always things we can learn from to do positively, but also mistakes we can learn from. Over 40 years, Dan, which is a good time span. Looking back at that, do you think I could have done that differently and that would have produced a different outcome? I could have built a different type of business quicker if I'd have
I
avoided
would
some of these
I
mistakes
would
as a therapist.
I would say, first of all, that one of the most fortunate for people now is the business club, because I never had any backup or anybody I could go to or get further
Mm,
advice to unless I paid to do a particular course.
mm,
The stuff that you guys provide, I think, is amazing, just
thank
amazing.
you.
For so, as long as they've got the enthusiasm, as long as they've got the ability to stick with it, because you've really got to give almost total attention, haven't you, to any business now, but
Yeah,
particularly this,
yeah,
um, and use all the facilities that are available now, because I think YouTube and obviously Chat GPT, I find that incredible. I use that 2 or 3 times a week. I think it's amazing. That there is so much opportunity now. What it is that allows some people to be successful, I don't really know. I think when you go on a class, and I've been on quite a few classes, you can always tell the ones that probably won't make it.
mm,
But the facilities that they've got now, mistakes, I just think that everything is a learning process, and I really can't pick anything that I could say that was a particular mistake. But there's many times that I've thought after a session, yeah, I could have done that slightly differently.
okay.
And you apply those techniques, you learn from those techniques. Um, and as long as you realize that you can, I mean, I spent a lifetime of learning. I still, when I come to you guys, I'm still struggling with my IT and things I want to be, but I want to be really into what is happening now.
Yeah,
And it's so available for people.
it
So,
really is, isn't it?
yeah.
Technology wise.
So if they really get their enthusiasm, if they really continue to know that you've got to keep learning,
Mm,
you never know it all. You could never know it all.
yeah.
And
And
take, the advice from you guys. Brilliant.
yeah, and to really see it as a business. I know some people won't like that word because they just want to do what's on their heart and change the world, which is commendable.
Yeah.
But you cannot neglect, especially in the early years, to view it as a business.
Mm.
I mean, what's the point in leaving a a job where you're making a living to just become a therapist and doing what you really want to do, but still just
Mm.
making a living? You've just changed. You've just changed where you do
Yeah.
the place where you make. I mean, the idea for me, Den, is to make a lifestyle from what you love to do. Would you
Mm.
say you've been able to create a lifestyle from to doing what
Oh,
you love
oh,
to do?
most definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
It's been an
difference.
enormous part of my thinking, of my whole life.
Yeah,
Yeah, very much so. And I always think of this little saying that which is expected tends to be realized, because I really think that intention and energy, I think, I believe the whole of the universe is energy, and what you put out there is very, very likely to come back to you. So you've got
that
to have
sounds like
that.
a Gil Boyne quote. That does to me.
Yeah, 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 dear old Gil. Yeah, yeah. That was the
All these
expected thing to
previous
go on.
ascended masters. He's still alive, Gil Boyne. Is he?
No, no, he died
He's
about 18 months
died.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Wonderful
we
chap.
do stand on the shoulders of some giants in this, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful. And I suppose practices do change our views of how therapy should be applied and stuff, but always developing. And I suppose then that, as therapists, we should always be developing ourselves. There's never a point where
Absolutely.
we arrive and we are the final version, because I think
No.
that for me, I'm way down the ladder in terms of where you are and what you've gone through. I'm relatively new in this, but I just feel I always want to be developing myself, not just as a therapist and learning hypnotherapy sort of approaches, but individually as a person on a personal level.
Yeah.
We can only give what we possess. I always
And you're
say.
sky high above me in the website design and IT and all the other things.
So yeah, we could
I
do good
try
together
I
in
try
business,
so
and then,
hard.
but
Yeah.
I suppose what have you done over the years that's sort of helped you to keep continuously developing so you can be the best version of yourself, and by extension, give that, improvement to your clients? How and what recommendations could you give to therapists?
I think it's having patience. I think it's having perspective. I think whenever there is a problem, I always say to people, if something is stressing you, you've got two choices. The first choice is to remove the stress, remove the side of the stress to whatever you can. If that's impossible, you have to change your perspective. And if
Good,
you can
very good.
actually put something into a proper perspective and deal with the feelings that are around that, that for most things, it really is important. And I've got 5 children, 7 grandchildren. I think it's been so important to me to know that whatever I'm doing with them, with their little minds, I am helping produce a beautiful person.
Mm,
Plenty of love, plenty of confidence giving, always being there, and they're all out in the world. They're all doing their lovely things and great family. So I think it's helped me tremendously in the way that I've incorporated it really into my family life. And my daughter Emma's had both kids, but with hypnobirthing, no problem at all,
okay.
no gas and air, nothing at all.
Wow.
And they've grown up with this aspect of mind, and they're all doing brilliant. I've got 2 sons. One is 59. He retired 10 years ago. The other one's 55. He's just retired. And occasionally I think,
Good.
what am I doing? Still working all these hours I do. But then I think, well, I wouldn't have it any other way. But I think, I hope to think that I've instilled them in the confidence and the love of being out in the world.
Mm,
So yeah, that's how it's helped me. I try.
wonderful, wonderful.
I try.
So, hypnotherapy has a future, obviously. I think we've already touched on it. It seems to be a sort of a growing, more popular thing,
Yeah.
particularly in areas like mental health care. I
Yeah.
think. Have you touched upon that in any sort of big way, Dan?
Yeah, and again, a lot of that is basically stress related and
Mm,
helping them to get a focus in what's happening. But the main thing there is you have to know your limits. I mean, if somebody's schizophrenic or
yeah.
deeply disturbed, I usually say, well, look, go back to GP, go back to psychiatrist, whatever. If they feel that hypnotherapy would help, give me a line,
Mm,
let me know, and I'll do what I can do. So it can be extremely helpful, but you've got to know there are those areas which perhaps triple care,
okay.
they're
That's
very few. They're very few
yeah.
areas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are very few areas. But I think as an overall approach to helping people physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because I believe in that dimension as well.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy is a tremendous way to see a
Mm.
person holistically and to help them through many different things, Dan.
Mm. And I
So,
think the way I normally approach it, I try and explain to them that the mind is in two parts. You've got a conscious thinking mind, then you've got that subconscious mind, which actually records everything from birth, is recorded back in that. If
mm,
you can, most of the things are there for our preservation, for our well-being. But if you've got a program in there that is bringing this negativity in whatever way, the relaxation of that top mind can actually begin to work with that program. And that's the way that I've always seen the human mind in
yeah,
that way.
yeah. Do you practice self hypnotherapy time to time?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I
Okay.
do. Yeah, if I go to the dentist, I look at the light and put myself on a beach, and it's okay. um, some things. Well, I think anything that's happened to me usually is has been physical rather than
Okay.
um, of the mind. So I think I do. Yeah, I believe I
And
do.
is that something you leave your clients with, or some sort of techniques for
Yes. Oh,
self?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You think
Because
that's an
once they
important
can,
part?
yeah, once they begin to get a hold on self hypnosis, which all hypnosis actually is self hypnosis, they
Yes.
do it. I mean,
Yes.
we give them the tools, they use the
Yeah.
tools and do it.
Absolutely. Mm.
And if I can tell them ways in which they can use self hypnosis in occasions where it's necessary, once they start to prove themselves it's viable, um, then it opens up a new sort of word for them. Got to be very careful when doing therapy not to get people dependent on you because you'll get people that will want to come back once a month for life, but you can't have that dependency. You've got to at some point say to them, look, you have the ability. I've taught you these tools that you can actually learn for yourself, use them.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Just in closing, Dan, is there a sort of a golden rule that you can immediately think off the top of your head for therapists to sort of stay in the race for the long term, to be the best they can, and to deliver the best practice for their clients that you found from practice?
Golden rule. I don't know. Believe in what you do. Give it energy. And always have the client's welfare in mind. It's all about the person's well-being.
Very good.
That's really, really important. I'm sure there's a much more in-depth answer if I've had notice of it. But
I know, I think that's good, because I suppose some people could, here's another $100, here's another 150 quid. But ultimately, it is about people's well-being, isn't it? If you lose sight of that, then it's game over. So that's a very good insight. Very good insight. Where can we find you online, Dan? Just for listeners, the link will also be
I'm online
on the page where this is.
With my website.
Yeah.
It's www.uk-hypnotherapy.com.
Okay.
Or if you Google Dan Clare hypnosis, Isle of Wight, I come up on the top. Anyway,
good.
Which is good. But the website's pretty good. And with your help, I'm working on that a little bit more. See, you're always learning. There's always change.
That's right. Yeah.
Never forget that.
Optimizing life. Always.
Absolutely.
Always. Yeah. So that link will appear wherever you find this podcast. That'll be on Spotify. That'll be on the Therapy Business Club, or on our Facebook, or somewhere else, wherever it gets put. Dan, you've been a wonderful guest today, my friend.
And I'm always happy to take calls for people if they just want to chat. I don't mean I'm always happy to talk about hypnosis. I love it. I enjoy it, and I've got the time now. So
I'm presuming on the website there's a place where you can just book that call and make the call with you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So Dan, thank you so much for giving of your time, your experience, and insights today. Very much appreciated. I'm sure the listeners have learned a lot from you today in your 40 years plus of helping, caring for people. Much appreciated.
Thank you for treating me gently.
Awesome. Thanks. So if you're listening to this podcast now, I appreciate it. We've done previous podcasts. Wherever you're listening or watching this podcast, you can view previous episodes. Do subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and look out for further episodes of this, where we'll be talking to various therapists, particularly with the angle of how to build a successful, flourishing therapy practice. I'm Ewan Jupp. This is the Therapy Business Club podcast today with Dan Clare. Thank you for your time. We wish you peace and well-being. Goodbye.